this is what would happen if the playoffs ended today and we did not have one more game. But there's so many scenarios to talk about here. And I think the first one and the most interesting one going into this weekend is that the Bills have battled back and have now forced a AFC East title game here in week 18. That Miami Buffalo game, it's all the way here at the end of the screen. You see where my mouse is pointing. That one is for the AFC East. So the winner of this game will be moving up and playing a home playoff game in the first round. So if the Bills win, they'll play against the Colts as of right now, which also could change. We're going to talk about that. And if the Dolphins win, they will be the ones that are in the 2 seed. This is basically for the 2 seed, for the division. It's going to be an interesting game. And I want to know, Tony, what's your opinion on this game, man? You think that the Bills come out on top? They are 3-point favorites on the road against Miami.
Yeah, so when I look at the game, I feel like Miami's got to win, just based on the way that the Bills have been playing. But then I look at the injury report for the Dolphins and how badly the Bills need this, because the Bills, they're not guaranteed a playoff spot. I mean, they could be, I think, at the time the game kicks off or whenever, however the scenarios work out, they could be in, which would take all the drama out of it. But like, I just look at the injury report and I'm like, how much more can the Dolphins sustain to really lose? You got a banged up Raheem Mostert. Like at a certain point, do you just sit him down and say, okay, we're playing for next week, no more? You know, like Jalen Waddle, not likely to play. You lose Chubb, Phillips, Howard's banged up. Like they're just losing too many players defensively, I think, to really be competitive in this game where everybody on the Bills has to be clawing and scratching. Like if you want to be in Buffalo and you want things to kind of stay the same, like I really think Sean McDermott needs this one to possibly still be the Bills coach, even though I don't know if we're talking about this, but everybody's talking about firing coaches and getting new coaches. Like, have you looked at the list of candidates? Like, I don't think that there's like 8 NFL coaches, but everybody's like, oh yeah, we're firing our coach and we're getting this guy. And it's like, once you get past like number 3 on the list, it's a real crapshoot of who you're getting. So if the Bills got added to that long list of teams that are firing their coaches reportedly, I don't think it would look great. So I don't know what I just said exactly, but I'm picking the Bills because I think that they just have to have it. Like they have to win this game. So I'm going to take the Bills, but I'm not sure I really believe it.
If the Buffalo Bills lose this game, so if they lose this game, holy shit, it's going to blow up in Buffalo. Diggs is already pissed off for some damn reason. He's not getting used as much as he should be. He's already been on the outskirts since they lost last year. And you don't think losing this, because like you said, the Bills can be the number 2 seed, or they could be sitting their ass with us next week at home. They can miss the playoffs completely. And your top receiver is already mad, already pissed off with the organization for the way they're going. This would just blow it all up. So I'm with Tony. I think Buffalo wins. And Tony talked about it a couple weeks ago, Mike, when he told us, look at Miami's schedule. Miami's going to start losing some of these tough games. They have a bad, tough schedule. And they did. They did exactly that. So, yeah, I see. I see. If you're going by teams that need it more and teams that are going to come out here and probably and are healthier and probably ready to go, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. I think the Buffalo Bills win this game.
I also think that the Bills win, and that's who I'm picking to win this one as well, which would put the Bills in the 2 seed as the AFC East champs. And I mean, when we talk about teams in the AFC, it seems like it's wide open. Anyone to try and take a shot at Baltimore in the AFC title game potentially. I think that's the game I want to see most. Buffalo versus Baltimore. That would be a ton of fun. We just saw Baltimore smoke Miami, and Miami's not fully healthy. They're going into the playoffs banged up. The Kansas City thing could be interesting as well, but I'm not extremely confident that they're getting out the first round unless their matchup ends up being very favorable. I think Cleveland versus Baltimore or Buffalo versus Baltimore are our best AFC title games on the table right now.
I want Cleveland and Baltimore. I want Joe Flacco riding back in there, falling asleep at the press conference, just being like, Oh yeah, which jersey am I wearing today? Oh, I'm wearing the other one. We'll get a win. I'm going back to the Super Bowl. Like this guy, what Joe Flacco did, and all of the respect he had to demand. And I'm not gonna lie, like I thought this guy was fully cashed out after watching him play for the Jets last year, and really all he needed was a little bit of an innovative play caller and a decent offensive line, and the guy's still a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. Like he should be, based on how he's playing right now, with the decent circumstances, he should still be a starter at age 40 in the NFL next year.
Well, Joe Flacco has nothing to lose, Tony. Coming in here, he was already the fourth quarterback of the Cleveland Browns season, right? He probably was sitting at home going, my career's over. I'm not going to do anything. Then he comes in here, he gets the phone call, hey, you want to come play for us? He comes out there. He has nothing to lose. He could throw that damn ball up. He could throw 5 interceptions in the game. Do you think they're going to take him out? No. He's just having fun playing, basically going back and playing like he's playing in his childhood. There's no fucks given in Joe Flacco's game this year because why? He's not supposed to be dominating anyways. They have a $252 million quarterback that's on the bench that's hurt right now, and he's just out there being that stopgap. So he's just playing for fun right now.
Yeah, and when you look at what Cleveland has on the defense side of the ball, they have a legitimate chance, especially if he's playing the way he's playing. They have a real chance to be a team that could go to the Super Bowl. It's insane. But I just clicked the Buffalo Bills as the winner. That's who we picked. What we can do is we can set this as the playoffs now. So the Bills have the 2 seed, but we can go ahead and talk about the AFC South. Go ahead and talk about some of these other matchups, and then flip that Miami Buffalo game, and people can really see like how much is on the line in that game and how much it's going to mess with the seeding. Miami goes all the way to the 6th seed with that loss. And before we move on, what do the Miami Dolphins need to do? Because I don't think that they're Super Bowl contenders this year, like, Dolphins fans want them to be. I don't think that they're really a team that I think is going to be able to even make it to the AFC Championship game. I don't know how you guys feel about them, but what do the Dolphins need to do this offseason to become like legit Super Bowl contenders? It feels like they're knocking on the door.
Well, I think they're taking the proper steps. Like it's really strange how people forget how greatness and how NFL teams are built, right? It's very rare for a Joe Burrow in his second year to just skyrocket and have one year where they go to the Super Bowl. And really, if you look back on history, it's like kind of Dan Marino did that, didn't have a lot of success after that. And if you look at that playoff run, like it's not really as, wow, look what Joe Burrow did as people remember. Like he played well, but like they should have lost to the Titans, that 9-sack game. They probably should have lost to Kansas City. Joe Burrow didn't play out of his mind. It wasn't like the run Flacco had to the Super Bowl with the Ravens that one year where he had a good defense and Joe was lights out in his Super Bowl victory. So, like, I think the Dolphins are doing the right thing. They're taking the proper steps. If they can win the division this year, that's a big step. If they can get in as the 2 seed and win a playoff game, that's the next step. Like, I think they are taking the right steps. It's about, like, getting healthy, continuing to build a culture. Like, I don't think they're as weak or as soft as everybody says. I think just because they're so fancy and fast, we don't think they play tough. But tell that to Sealer and Christian Wilkins on that defensive line. Yeah. Like those guys are monsters. If Jalen Phillips is healthy and Bradley Chubb doesn't get hurt in meaningless time, I'm picking the Dolphins to win this game and knock the Bills out of the playoffs. Like that's where it's at. But you can't have all those major injuries. So I think that if they run this thing back, like they should be favored to win the division next year. Like you got to figure out the Tua contract, but like they're doing the right things. Like they're building a team that could compete for a Super Bowl.
It's just a matter of health and chemistry. Just keep building.
Experience. You have to win in this league through like building experience. That's the problem with the Bills. Like they got that experience. They got all the way up there, and then they just ran into Patrick Mahomes, and he like wrecked the team's confidence. He like walked in and just abused them, and now every time it's like, what happened to this team? They're like shell shocked.
Wrecked my confidence too.
You had confidence?
I had confidence, yeah, before Mahomes came into the league. No, I don't have any.
Well, Mike, let's go to the Jacksonville Titans game because that's the game that's going to impact almost everything, right? That's like one of the main games. Because if Jacksonville wins, they're automatically in, and I think Colts are in if they win.
I have it here. I have the scenario down here. So the Texans versus Colts game is a win and in. They will get a wild card or the division, whichever team wins that game. And the Jaguars face off against the Titans in Tennessee. If the Jags win that game, they will win the South, which will put the winner of the other game in the wild card. So basically, for the Jaguars here, it's win and in. Now, if the Jaguars lose, I think they lose the division.
Yeah, that's what I want.
And they fall out of the playoffs. So Jaguars, this is an elimination game for them again. I feel like we just had this scenario last year, right? Titans, Jaguars last week of the season. And then for the other two teams, the Titans and the Colts, it's just winning in for them, but it's whether or not are they going to have a home playoff game or not. It's based off this Jaguars game.
Joe?
Which will be interesting. It will be interesting. I think,
I
don't know. The Jaguars are really beat up. Like they're on upset alert.
Yeah, but I'm not really worried about the Titans.
This is why I have a little faith in the Titans. Like, are we going to have one last like sort of farewell Vrabel game? You know, like there's a lot of rumors that Vrabel kind of wants to be out. He sees the writing on the wall. Like the quarterback situation might not be right. Henry's going. Like really, he's got kind of like from the heyday that's still there is Jeffrey Simmons, but he's banged up a lot now too and getting a little bit older. Like Vrabel's looking around and going, wait, Ohio State? If Jim Harbaugh might be leaving to the NFL, like I could go back and coach at my alma mater. Like we'll figure out the quarterback situation. We'll be fine there. And I could go be a hero for my college football team. The Patriots job might be open. Like he's got a good relationship with Kraft. Like he might look around and say, hey, I don't really want to be in Tennessee. I've done everything I can. He might be looking around this division too and going, well, they got Lawrence and they got Anthony Richardson, who looked pretty good for a couple games if he could just learn how to take care of his head. And CJ Stroud's here, and I got Levis. like,
Mayo boy.
Yeah, I think I've done all that I can here, and this is clearly a rebuild. He might have that final like, hey, Derek, Tanny, let's have one last ride. Let's send the Jaguars home, remind them who they are in this division, like, you know, a doormat since the Brunel days, and let's go. I mean, it's at home. I could see an upset in this game where he has the boys hyped. It's close at halftime, and he gives a great speech. They win one last game before he leaves. I don't know if I'm picking it, but I could see it happening.
And for the draft order, that sends the Titans down like 5 spots.
But if he's walking out the door, he don't give a fuck. It's just like
he doesn't care.
I don't think Mike Vrabel gives a shit about draft position at all. Like you could never tell me that man is playing for next season or tanking. Like he is way too intense to be like, oh, well, how would this affect our draft stock? He's like, no. He's too competitive not to do. He's still competing with guys out there like, oh, I could fucking give you a couple reps at tackle, pussy. Like, get out there and come on, work on that slide step. Like, you can't block that guy. Like, he thinks he could still do it. Like, that's how he's got that athlete, crazy competitive, like, you know, that mindset of a competitor, of a player, of an athlete. Yeah. Like, he just thinks differently. There's no way he's thinking about what draft position he's going to have.
And his teams reflect that. The teams that he coaches always play like that too.
Yeah.
I think that it's upset alert as well, Tony, but I hope and I think that the Jaguars are going to find a way to get it done. Joe, you're in on the Jaguars too, right?
Yeah, I'm in on the Jags.
It seems like
you changed the Miami game. You got to go back and hit the Miami Bills again.
So let's just say the Jags win.
It seems like the Jaguars also maybe precautionary, you know, sat Lawrence for this exact scenario. Like, hey, Next
gotta go
week,
out and ball
everything's on
out.
the line.
Yeah.
Let's get this guy a week off.
Yeah. And it worked out for him.
Oh, and Jacksonville only needs one good half. One good half to win a game.
Hey, okay, real funny here, Mister. Haven't won a playoff game since like the 70s. Get the fuck out of here.
That week 18 was a playoff game, Tony. That's what they told me, at least. Let's move on to Colts versus Texans. This one is really interesting to me. CJ Stroud going to be back out there. CJ Stroud played in last week's game, right?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Played well.
Second game back, ready, rocking, back into the groove of things. And the Colts, man, they're just such a sneaky team. I feel like they got the perfect amount of guys that have experience now in the league, but they're in their like prime playing years, that Shane Steichen has just been able to put on a coaching masterclass with this offense, especially, but also the defense and Gardner Minshew. What do you think about this game, Joe, between the Texans and Colts in Indy? That might be the difference maker. That's in Indy.
Yeah, it's just two teams that are just clawing at each other and won't go away. Like that's the thing about when you see the Texans play and you see the Colts play. Like at one point in the game, you're like, "Oh, damn, they're getting their ass kicked," and then all of a sudden they're right back in the game. Both of these teams don't give up, and I think it's gonna be a hell of a game. But I'm rooting for the Texans in this game because I like C.J. Stroud and I like everything that D'Amico Ryans and stuff. And plus the Colts ended my Raiders season last week, so. I'm rooting for the Texans. I like everything about CJ Stroud. You guys are.
The game's in Indianapolis, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm rooting for the Texans. I'm probably going to pick the Texans. I think it's just a more fun story to have the Texans in the playoffs than to have Gardner Minshew. And Minshew's fun, and I'll still watch and probably end up rooting for that because I like the underdog story, right? But I think there's just something about having CJ Stroud really cap off a rookie of the year season, make the playoffs. But the thing that I think would come out of that win the most is all of a sudden after 1 year of offensive coordinator experience, Bobby Slowick would become a legit talked about NFL coaching candidate. Like it started off kind of at the beginning of the year, like, oh, he's from time with the Shanahan tree, guy worked at PFF, he's into analytics, numbers, whatever. Like, I just think the guy knows offensive football and he's studied in some right places. And anybody, Joe used to say this all the time, if you even shared a cab, a cup of coffee, handed a handkerchief over to anybody from Kyle Shanahan, you're getting a head coaching job, or Sean McVay. Like, all you had to do is pass them in the lobby and be like, oh, one time I nodded at Sean McVay when he walked by, and they're like, that's the coach for us. Bobby Slowick has that on his resume. He's going to have this year with CJ Stroud. So I think a win here and all the conversation is going to be like, do you want Ben Johnson or do you want Bobby Slowick? Like that, they're going to be a legit conversation for coaches coming up, especially if there's 8 openings.
And everything that Slowick does for the offensive side of the ball, D'Amico Ryans is like that perfect balance to the defensive side of the ball. This Texans defense played their ass off this year. I think Joe was saying it in the preseason he expected their defense to improve, but did you even think it was going to be this much, Joe, to where they're one of the better defenses in the AFC now, with a bunch of youngsters in that secondary?
So I think the crazy thing is the veterans, though, right? Jonathan Grignard, I don't know if I'm butchering his name or not. He's having a season where he's going to get paid this offseason as an edge rusher. He had a good year like 2 years ago and then kind of cooled off. But this year, I think he's announced his arrival. They still get a veteran snaps from Jerry Hughes out there making plays. The big guy in the middle, who is it? Sheldon Rankins?
Yeah, Sheldon Rankins.
Has had some phenomenal games for them on the interior of that defense. And then you get the emergence of Will Anderson, who has played spectacularly this year. Like, he's really good against the run. The pass rush is there. So I think all of a sudden, Stingley making plays down the stretch during this run, had like 4 interceptions in 3 games or whatever it was. So you get the players that are there, Jalen Petrie making a
he's
little
one
bit
of
of a rise. You know, if he can
upcoming
start
players.
tackling better, then all of a sudden you're loaded. It's a good defense, and they could get hot and win a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, and
And
I've seen Indy's defense drop the ball multiple times this year. I don't have as much confidence in them as I do Houston.
I think we talked about Houston in our preview, and we talked about they brought in Singletary for a reason, right, on offense, and what a boost I think that has made for them.
Mm.
And Tony, not just when you're talking about Slowick, not just see what he does for C.J. Stroud. They had Case Keenum in there for a game or two, and they still did good on offense. Like it's just. It just shows that coaching matters in this league, right? That if you get the right coach with the right situation, you're going to hit, and Houston hit right here.
And they're starting to become like a fun team too. I think they're going to have a good free agency this offseason. Come in and play with these guys. Like, for example, they have receivers right now that are young and up and coming, but who wouldn't want to go in and have fun with Nico Collins and Tank Dell this offseason?
Yeah, Nico Collins is a free agent. He's part of that free agent class where I think it's really nice, right? You got Ayuk and Higgins and Collins, and there's one more that's escaping me right now. But like, there's a good kind of low key free agency class of potential
so even
number
scarier,
one.
They may upgrade from Nico Collins.
Exactly, they could go. They could go out and add, somebody in this draft. They could bring in another weapon there. I would say that one of the things to me that's most interesting is we're starting to find more coaches that are playing we're going to capitalize on your weakness card rather than this is what we do and we do it really well no matter what. Like, this is our identity. And I do think that's important to have, but you also look at what Belichick's done on the defensive side of the ball. Like, that defense will change from week to week for like 2 straight decades. We're just, whatever you do really well, you won't do that really well against me. And you will find different players and ways to beat us. I think we're starting to see that offensively a little bit. Coaches are getting so used to the film. They're like, what does this team really struggle with? They might struggle with passing, but it might not just be passing. It might be middle of the field. Linebackers can't cover. Safeties have bad alignment, judgment, whatever it is. We're going to attack the center of the middle of the field the same. So I think we're seeing more coordinators have that ability to be putting game plans together to attack the weaknesses of stuff instead of being like, we just run the ball and that's what we do, or we just throw the ball and that's what we do. It's like, no. What does that team do bad? We're going to do that really good this week in practice, and we're going to go out and execute on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that, Tony, because it used to be like the Remember the Titans day, right? We got 6 plays. It's just like Novocaine. Give it time and it's going to work. No, you don't do that anymore. Like you said, find the weakness. If that linebacker can't cover your tight end or he's giving up a bunch of shit to tight ends, well, guess who you're feeding all day until they stop that guy? Like, we do it. I mean, it's something that we've done on Madden all the time. If I'm playing you in Madden, I'm going to find your weakness and I'm going to do the same thing. Why not do that in real life? Find that weakness and go at it until they stop it. When the Bears played the Raiders this year, they came out and said it. They said, wherever Max Crosby was, we made the play go the other way. And there's and we beat the shit out of them. And that's how we do it. Why not get away from their best players? You do it with cornerbacks. You were already doing it the last couple of years going, oh, there's Sauce Gardner. We're not going to throw over there, but we'll throw over here. You've done it there. Why not do it with the whole defense? It's a great thing. But there's a downside to it, Tony. The downside would be doing what Shanahan did last week against the Baltimore Ravens, or 2 weeks ago to the Baltimore Ravens, where I thought he overcoached himself and took away some of his own play callers because he thought maybe the Ravens were going to come in and take away his guys.
Yeah, there's some of that gamesmanship, I think, that goes back and forth where, yeah, it's gonna happen, but it's really hard to me, I think, offensively to make that adjustment. Right? It's riskier because there's more moving parts, especially if you're saying hey, there's something that they do really poorly, but we haven't really rammed this or executed this on game day. And you have to have a lot of trust in your guys to say, hey, I'm going to go out. We're going to do something that we haven't really done this week. And we're going to have 8 to 10 new plays that attack this specific thing. We're going to highlight a player that maybe hasn't really been like the guy for us, but we're going to go after it. And I think that's kind of why we've seen an explosion of like whoever it is, whether it's Noah Brown, is played way better this year with them than he did even with his limited time with the Cowboys. And you would think the Cowboys is like a better situation than a rookie quarterback and a first-year play caller, but he's played outstanding. Because he's put in those situations to succeed.
Yeah, and it's almost like the opposite of what the coaches that play for our coach for our favorite teams did. That's why they're both fired.
I can't
get out of here.
I cannot watch Derwin James be outstanding the last 2 games and go, what the fuck have I been watching for 2.5 years?
It's insane. It's insane.
Click on the
Anyways,
Texans, Mike.
we're gonna give this to Houston. So that puts the AFC. That's the AFC. And by the way, to all you conspiracy theorists out there,
Mike.
What happened?
What's up with Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So if the Steelers win, no, it doesn't change. That's it. That would clinch. That would clinch.
So no matter what. Okay, so
let's see. Steelers win and Colts
So
win.
basically, you have to change it back to Miami winning.
Miami wins. And Tennessee wins. That's how Steelers get in. Oh, no.
Well,
they're in there. So Steelers get the 7th seed. If Miami wins and Pittsburgh wins, Buffalo will be out. That's crazy.
What if the Colts? It doesn't matter what happens in the Colts Texans.
Now, if they tie, that kicks the Steelers back out. Colts Texans in this situation, if the Colts win, then the Colts get the 6th seed, and the Bills are still out.
That just changes that.
Now, if they tie, the Bills are back in as a 7. This is crazy. It's so much that can happen. But I think this is what the NFL wants to see. This is their best bracket right here for the AFC, where you got CJ Stroud versus Josh Allen, Tua and the Dolphins, and Tyreek versus the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes and them. And then you got this Jacksonville-Cleveland game where Joe Flacco is obviously on his run, but you got Trevor Lawrence back into the playoffs as well.
I agree. I think that the league would prefer to have Trevor Lawrence in there, even if he's not playing that great. And I would pick and bet heavily on the Browns in that scenario against a wounded. Jim Schwartz is going to come out and go nuts on Trevor Lawrence in the first quarter of that game.
Who can't move right now. He can't run.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a pretty situation.
So Pittsburgh
played a few weeks ago, I think. They played a few weeks ago. I think the Browns.
No, Indianapolis. So Pittsburgh could have 10 wins and miss the playoffs, right? Is what you're saying. Indianapolis would have 9 and miss the playoffs?
Yeah.
I predicted that in our show, guys. I said the Steelers were going to have 10 wins this year and they weren't going to make the playoffs.
You should get like super praise for that prediction.
So if you're a Steelers fan, you're rooting for the Dolphins and the Titans this week?
I take that back. I had them at 11-6 and not making the playoffs.
The Dolphins win, the Steelers win, the Steelers are in.
Put the Bills winning, Mike, and then click on the Titans.
If the Titans win also. So you're rooting for the Dolphins and the Titans.
So you don't really care about the Titans game.
Well, if the Titans win and the Jaguars lose, the Steelers get their spot.
Yeah.
Because then this game is for the division. So then the Colts or the Texans would be in.
So yeah, you either want Jacksonville if you're well, it doesn't matter. You just want Jacksonville to lose, and then you're good.
Jacksonville to lose, or Miami, or both Buffalo to lose, I should say, and a Steelers victory, which I don't even think is a foregone conclusion versus even Tyler Huntley. And we're going to talk about should the Ravens and 49ers be resting their starters here in a little bit after we go to the NFC bracket. But I don't even think that's a foregone conclusion that the Steelers beat them with the backups.
Well, if we're going to transition to the NFC, I just got an alert that Sam Darnold is starting against Carson Wentz.
There you go.
The Rams versus
Rams
versus 49ers.
Well, that game means absolutely nothing to the Rams or
Yep.
I mean that seeding is mostly all locked up, right? There's nothing really going on.
But
in
as
the
far as
NFC.
backup QBs go, come on, this is a fun one. I mean, this is two former number 2 overall picks in back-to-back drafts, I believe, from a few years ago. Like this is
Now they're backups.
and now they're backups on good teams with two of the best play callers. Like which one of these, like Shanahan, McVay, you know that they're going to go out there and try to get a win in this game with their backup QB.
Yeah.
This is the week to start Demarcus Robinson, Mike. This is the week.
So can Green Bay miss the playoffs? Is that what it is?
I lost because of that start, by the way.
Yeah, Green Bay can miss the playoffs.
And who would take their spot?
One of the teams from the NFC South, potentially. No. Vikings.
Mike, do you have the NFC?
Sorry, I just needed a moment to be pissed. The NFC is right here as well. So the way the NFC is formatted here, and the way things could go either way, the Falcons and the Vikings kind of need some help. I believe the Falcons would need the Buccaneers to lose to the Panthers and then to defeat the Saints to make it. And then the Vikings would need the Falcons to defeat the Saints and the Cardinals to defeat the Seahawks, I believe. But let me run this here. So let's say Vikings upset the Lions, or they just beat the Lions. I don't know if the Lions are playing for anything or not. Let's say the Vikings beat the Lions and the Falcons beat the Saints. So that puts us here with the Bucks in, but let's say the Bucks lose. So Atlanta wins the division now, and now they would need the Cardinals to upset the Seahawks. I believe who's the 7th seed here? Oh no, Green Bay needs to lose. That's who it is for the Vikings. So the Bears need to beat the Packers. Then Seattle's in. So then they would need Arizona to win. So the Vikings need a miracle to get in here. They need multiple upsets by multiple teams in multiple cities at the exact same time. And they need
Tampa Bay wins. Tampa Bay's in.
But Tampa Bay wins, they win the division. Tampa Bay is in a win and clinch situation. If they lose, then the Saints-Falcons game is for the division.
Oh, shit.
So if Tampa loses this Saints-Falcons game, if the Saints win, are in. If Falcons win, they're in.
And see, if I'm Green Bay, I don't want to play Justin Fields. That's a tough team. Seattle, I don't want to play Arizona because you've already seen what they can do. Oh man, this is a good last week. Like I don't think the NFL could have asked for I think I saw that there's 20 teams still alive for Super Bowl contention. So yeah, I mean you're showing it right now. It's ridiculous.
Well, if the Eagles weren't a bunch of flying trash cans, it would be even more interesting with the number 1 seed still on the line.
So I don't think that the Lions are kind of locked into the 3 seed.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how much Goff plays. Do they go to Bridgewater? Does Hendon Hooker get some end of the year kind of evaluation snaps or whatever in this game? I'm probably going to pick the Vikings in this game. Not really, like they're going to start Nick Mullins from the jump, and they're going to let their guys go out there and compete, as long as it's a competitive game. So I'll probably take the Vikings from that standpoint to knock off the Lions. I just have a harder time believing that those other 3 perfect scenarios are going to line up. Like the Panthers beating the Bucks. Like I'm not buying it. I don't know exactly what happened to the Bucks last week, but it's like laying an egg twice in a row against teams that I think that they're clearly better than, that I know that they're clearly. To talk about another job opening, Bulls, if you kick this one away, bro, like you can't come back. Like you got to go. And Baker, the same thing. Like we got on the show last week and I was like, Baker's should be the quarterback of the Raiders. This guy's been playing at a low key MVP level. And then all of a sudden he has that stinker against the Saints at home. Like, come on, man. You can't do that.
Mike, can you have the Lions win and the Eagles lose and see if that changes anything?
Well, one sec. Before I do that, I was going to say this too. Tampa Bay beats Carolina, and these things happen. Seattle loses to Arizona. Chicago beats Green Bay. The Vikings are still in unless the Saints win. And then the Saints come into the
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So that also
are in the playoffs?
There's a situation where 2 NFC South teams make the freaking playoffs this year.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
It is. What were you going to say, Joe? What was the other scenario? To move the
I just want to see if the Lions or Eagles are playing for anything.
The Lions actually are playing for the 2 seed. It looks like because they just moved up to the 2 seed.
Yeah, but
if Dallas
click New York. Click,
oh my god. Yeah. So if Dallas loses,
if the Giants beat the Eagles, does that do anything?
let me.
So they're all playing then, right?
So, well, the situation with the Eagles and the Cowboys is they're playing for the division. So Dallas has the tiebreaker. Actually, Dallas is a win, and they win the East situation. Like if Dallas wins, they get the home field playoff game, and they get the 2 seed, no matter what happens with Philly. But if Dallas loses and Philly wins, then Philly jumps up to the 2 seed, and the Lions move back to the 3 seed. Now both the Eagles and the Cowboys lose, the Lions move up to the 2 seed. And that seems like an unlikely scenario, but that could happen.
Yeah, unlikely. I was just saying. So they will be playing those 3 teams should be playing.
Everyone but the Niners and Rams, I think, can move.
Yeah, to me, it's just like the Lions situation is far-fetched. And if you're scoreboard watching at halftime and you look up and see, oh, because I just got another alert on my phone. Sam Howell, QB1 for the Commanders. The way Sam Howell has looked, you're telling me that Dan Quinn isn't going to come out there and try and jump on Sam Howell early in this game and have this, 24-point lead. And then all of a sudden Dan Campbell's got to look out there and go like, all right, guys, let's run the ball. I think this will be the most punts Dan Campbell's ever had in a game. Like it'll be an opportunity to see how Campbell would call the game that he's not playing as necessarily life or death situation. Kind of like with what we saw at the end of that game. We're all texting each other and going, he's got to kick this, right? The second time. Well, he just got a third penalty. He's got to kick this on the third one. Oh, he's not gonna kick.
And I wasn't rooting for overtime so I can get 5 more points out of my running back. That would win me a fantasy championship at all. That wasn't doing that. Definitely wasn't doing that. But yeah, I agree with you. If Sam Howell is the starter for this game, he's going to throw 2 interceptions in the first half, and they're going to be out of it already. I think Dallas is going to win the game. And I think Dallas is going to win the division by winning the game, which is just crazy because what is that? 9 straight years we see a different winner in that division. I think that's cool, actually, that it flips so much.
It makes it interesting for sure.
And let's say Philly beats New York. So that puts Philly, the highest they can go if they lose the division is the 5 seed. They can't go any higher. So that puts them in the 5, which means that I don't think Detroit can move from there. So if it's true and Detroit's playing in a situation, I don't know if they play after or before the Cowboys-Eagles games, but the Lions will be locked into the 3 seed, which just means the only thing in flux from there is that South division, which could go to the Falcons, Saints, or Bucks still this weekend. I think the Bucks are going to win as well, Tony. I think they're just going to make that statement win there at the end of the season and head into the playoffs as the 4 seed and get ready for Philadelphia to come to town. That would lock in. If Tampa wins, that means we're for sure getting probably Philly, Tampa Bay. And then then we're going to get either at, what would it be? Atlanta? What if Atlanta wins? Oh, Green Bay makes it. So what the fuck, bro?
So hang on real quick. The
There's
Lions
in this is melting my brain.
The Lions are playing at 10, right? So the Cowboys and Eagles aren't playing till the 1:00 slots. So that means full steam ahead for the Lions. I take it back. They're not going to be able to. I thought since the game was being played in Washington that it would be a 10 a.m. start. No, it's the whatever going to be the Fox game of the week, probably Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Giants, both play at 1:25 kickoff times in the late window. So, I mean, yeah, we're looking at, they bumped it back too, where they're all 1:25 start times so that they can get those like clear finishes. So hopefully they won't have any playoff scenarios where they have to jump channels. Like, oh, there's a kickoff at 1 and we're contractually obligated to go to this one. Like, no, 10 o'clock starts and 1:25 starts. There's like seven games to start at 1:25. Like, this is the best game for the Red Zone channel. And I've only got, 1 fantasy championship to worry about. I wish I had more.
I'm going 8 split screens. I'm watching every single game at every single moment, all at once. That's what I'm going for. But okay, so We think that San Fran's going to beat LA. That doesn't really matter too much. We think that Dallas is going to beat Washington. So that would secure the division for Dallas and put them in the 2 seed. We think that Philly's going to defeat the Giants, which puts them in the 5 seed, locks them in. We think the Lions beat the Vikings, which locks them in on the 3 seed. But from here, Tony, look how much can still change. Okay. Oh, no, we said the Panthers also. The Bucks are going to beat the Panthers, locking them in as the 4 seed. But even at that, we could have the Packers in the playoffs if the Saints lose and the Packers win or lose, and the Seahawks lose, and the Packers win or lose, the Packers go in. Oh, my gosh. And if the Packers win, they can move into the 6, apparently, if all this happens and the Saints lose. Now, if the Packers win and the Saints win, it stays the same. So they have the tiebreaker over the Saints. But if the Packers lose and the Saints win, then the Saints come in as a 7 seed. And then underneath all of this is the Seahawks' potential to get the 7 seed if they win their game and all of this happens.
Yeah, Seahawks Cardinals to me is like, because how many wins would this? Let me see real quick.
I will say, Tony, we would like the Cardinals to win.
I was just gonna say that would put them at 5-12. I do think there's a strong possibility. Patrick Mahomes is sitting this game, but I still think Blaine Gabbert with Andy Reid
In their defense.
in the defense, they might be able to figure out how to beat the Chargers. So all of a sudden they go to 5-12. Might get Chargers a top 5 pick in that scenario. You know, like I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of hoping that they shut down Jalen Hurts in the second half and Marcus Mariota comes out there and just throws like 4 picks and the Giants pull off a Tyrod Taylor victory and the Giants go to 6 wins. Like, let's get everybody out of our way. Let's get Chargers a top 4 pick.
Yeah. Because, the Giants win and the Cardinals win.
I think those are 2 teams that are ahead of the Chargers.
That
right?
puts the Chargers in the territory where their pick is going to be worth up to 3 first-round picks, 2 at minimum.
A lot. Yeah, there's a lot of value.
That's just the big picks. Like, I'm sure a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and maybe 5th in that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value in the Chargers losing. There's very little value in them winning. Giff Smith gets to have a 1-2 record as an interim head coach. That's not enough for me.
Easton Stick gets his first win of his career.
Not enough for me.
Khalil Mack ends his Chargers career with a victory.
Not even close, bro. Fuck out of here with that.
But yeah, Joe, that's what we were just saying. Like, if we locked it in with the teams that we had heavily favored to win all these games, it's still so wishy-washy. And Seattle, Green Bay, Atlanta, and New Orleans are all in it still. I'll take that as a no. We'll see you guys next time.